Kevin, it's good to talk to you, and it's the first time we've had a conversation since the local elections, the Lib-Dems being returned as the ruling group and with an increased majority. But can we just deal with the elephant in the room first? Now, when it comes to government ministries, they're pretty straightforward. You've got the Minister of Transport, the Minister of Defence, the Minister for Digital and Culture. So can I just ask why Councillor Paul Roper is the Cabinet Member for Economic and Cultural Sustainable Development? No mention of tourism or heritage in that title.
And that's the elephant in the room. Well, that's a relatively easy question. Thanks for that. Always a pleasure to meet you, Richard. Firstly, heritage is fully embedded and culture is fully embedded within Paul's portfolio. Just because the name is not in the title doesn't mean it's any less important than any other word that's in there. Heritage is a vital part of our economy in Bath and North East Somerset. It's something I'm particularly passionate about. I have a degree in social and economic history, so I'm very keen to ensure.
Well, I didn't know that.
Well,
it's a very long and convoluted title when he could just be the Cabinet Member for Heritage and Tourism.
I'll tell you, I'll note that down, Richard. Okay.
That's what you said before the elections.
Okay, and I'll keep noting it.
Now, you did say, and I agree with you here, that tourism, heritage, is still the main income for this city. How are we recovering as a city post-COVID? What sort of a year, what sort of a summer, a tourist season are we having?
Well, I think anybody that's been in and around the city in the last few weeks will have seen how much we've bounced back. If you have seen the bid figures, footfall figures that are obviously independent from the council, they are above 2019 levels. I know from the Roman Baths figures, we had one of the, if not the largest, or most profitable days, should I say. Because interesting enough, the Roman Baths in particular are operating differently now. You book a slot, so the visitor experience is a lot better. You're not being filled through like a load of cattle. You're getting your own divided slot, so it's a far better visitor experience. And what we're finding, because it's a better visitor experience in general there, people are spending more money, and there's a better general visitor experience for the city as well. So I know, talking to the hotels and the restaurants and the shops, that the actual spend is up from tourists. Whether that means they're staying longer, I don't know, but the spend is up, which is great news for the city, great news for the economy.
The other thing, of course, that COVID hit was office space, people getting used to working at home. The council invested a fair bit of money in building an office block down there on the quays, which hasn't by any means been filled yet. Was that a bit of a shot in the foot? Are we disappointed? I mean, how much has that cost?
No, not at all. So I think the building is 50% full with some really good companies. We're in the process of talking to a number of other companies, and we're confident we can fill that space. Obviously, we're a very flexible council. If it comes to a point where we can't fill the floor space, we might look at turning that into alternative uses, whether that's accommodation, etc. But we're always very flexible with all of our property portfolio.
And has that affected in any way your thinking for the future development of the riverside through the city?
Well, we chatted about this before. I'm very passionate about it. When I arrived in Bath about 8 years ago, one of the things that shocked me was that most of the buildings face away from the river. So everything that we're doing at the moment, we're using our beautiful river and we're looking towards it. So there are many opportunities that we've got in the pipeline of probably some. Obviously, the private sector, they go for luxury apartments because that's what's going to make them the most money. What's crucial in Bath, and I'm probably going to go on a bit of a rant here, is the cost of living crisis and actually getting affordable homes, which is absolutely shocking. There are people that have lived in Bath all their life that can't afford to rent properties, and they're just being pushed out the market by Airbnbs, etc. And one of our key Lib-Dem priorities is actually creating proper affordable houses in the right place. And that's what I'm particularly passionate about. We are going to probably have to spend lots of money to do that, and we've spoken about using aqueous, some key worker accommodation as well. You've got teachers, nurses and doctors that can't afford to live in the city because they can't afford their first mortgage.
Where's that money coming from?
Well, there's Homes England that that will help us with the Locksbrook campus, development.
Which is for?
I can't give you the figures off the top of my head, but there's about 60 plus houses, I think, down there, and there's another 300.
Which will be for?
Hopefully for key workers. What I'll do is I will ask our amazing new councillor, Deborah Collins. We can talk about the election victory in a bit if we want to, which has brought in a huge pot of talent to the council, and it's somebody I've appointed to be to lead in housing regeneration and particularly creating affordable housing in the city is Councillor Deborah Collins, and she has been given the sole task of making sure we turn that from a conversation into reality.
But for young people who may be watching and listening to you now, what sort of commitment can you make to young people that there will be affordable housing for them, that young Bathonians don't have to go elsewhere, that they can stay, live, work in their own city?
It's difficult. I don't have a magic wand. We can affect things slightly. What I am doing is working very closely with the university, particularly around incubator new businesses that are coming from the university. So looking at a complex but simple solution of the university providing new incubator space in the old Debenhams building in the centre of town, while the council will look at giving those new incubator businesses free business rates for a short period of time. The university will look at paying for their rent. So it basically allows them to flourish within the city, so they can spend whatever little money they have on the very expensive rent, rather than having to spend it on business rates and rent for their business.
Well, that's another way of tackling it then, of encouraging and providing for start-up businesses to keep people here. Okay, can we move on to something which no doubt has cost the council and is costing the council a lot of money, and that's the installation of security barriers around the city. Now, you know you're not carrying everybody on this, and I've avoided so far saying ring of steel. Oops, it got out. But looking at what's going in now and the amount of disruption
you managed to get in the Guildhall through the machine gun nest and
As I said, I take it Baines is paying for it. Are you having any regrets at all as you're watching it go in?
No, none whatsoever. Unfortunately, it's being forced upon us by the police. It's a security issue.
They're not paying for it.
No, which is very annoying. Yes, unfortunately, taxpayers are having to pay for it. Inflationary costs, and also putting in a very complicated system which allows disabled access, which allows tradesmen to get in and out, has put the price up. Inflation has obviously put the price up. Once it's in, it'll be there for the next 40, 50 years, and it will look after itself. So if you look at the price over the lifespan, it doesn't seem so expensive. It needs to go in. Security comes first. People's safety comes first. We've seen all the horrendous things that have happened in Nice and other places where a nutter has gone through with a van and all of a sudden, within a few seconds, can kill 40, 50 people. That's what this is designed to stop.
That's very noble, and I can see the sense, but of course the barriers also do reduce the amount of traffic going through the city centre. You've said the disabled will still have access. Aren't you doing what a lot of other historic cities are doing, though, and in a way pedestrianising the core, the historical core of Bath? And is that such a bad thing?
It's not necessarily a bad thing. I was sitting outside having lunch with my parents at a cafe in Bath. I won't mention which cafe, but the cosmopolitan feel that Bath has now, it's probably one of the few silver linings that have come out of COVID, that the council were able to provide street licences and keep those street licences for people, and it's created that real nice Mediterranean cafe culture in our city that both our residents and our tourists really enjoy. So I don't apologise for that. I think that's a great addition to the city, and I'm encouraging it to grow as well.
Shame we didn't have a summer to go with it, but at least this week...
It's boiling hot now, yes.
Kevin, there are other contentious issues. Clean air zones, livable neighbourhoods, resident parking zones, all have been pretty hard to swallow for a lot of people. How difficult is it? I mean, you've been re-elected with an increased majority, so somebody must love you. But how difficult is it to carry both the citizens and your business people with you on doing all of this?
Well, Richard, you mentioned the election, so it's the first time in history any political party has retained control. We didn't just retain control, we increased our majority.
In
Baines, yeah. And we increased our majority. And what we did, we were extremely honest with our ambitions to be one of the greenest and cleanest authorities in the United Kingdom. And we were, every bit of literature we put out, we were honest, and we told people what our ambitions were. And the people of Bath and North East Somerset rewarded us with that honesty and rewarded us with that message. So I would say there are a number of very loud people that disagree with that, but clearly they are in the minority.
Are you leading by example? Have you ditched your car for a bike?
Well, you'll often see me nipping up and down on an e-scooter on the London road. My husband comes in on a bike every day, bless him. I do have a little old Fiesta that I'm running into the ground, so I'm not purchasing a new 4x4 BMW or anything like that. So my travel arrangements are very green.
Is your old Fiesta illegally emitting too many emissions?
No, it's a heavy. In fact, I've got for evidence. I caught the bus in this morning as well. So there we are.
I'm going to talk to Councillor Roper, the Cabinet Member for Culture and Heritage, about the Fashion Museum and where we're going from here. But as leader, it was disappointing, I know, for you and for all the people who worked on putting forward the application that you didn't get government backing for the new Fashion Museum. How are you getting on with looking for alternative sources of revenue? And I couldn't help thinking that maybe it might be better to hand the whole thing over to somebody else. I mean, we get the V&A Dundee, isn't it? Why couldn't we have the V&A Bath?
It's a very good question. Unlike Dundee, we already own one of the most impressive fashion collections in Europe, if not the world. So Dundee didn't have that. So we're the one with the assets, not the V&A. That's not to say we shouldn't work in partnership with the V&A and also have the ambition, which we do have, to have a 5-star plus fashion museum or fashion quarter at the same level as the V&A. That is the expectation. You spoke about the Levelling Up Fund. The Levelling Up Fund is a disgusting way that the government had councils fighting against each other for a tiny pot of money. The amount of deprivation and need across the United Kingdom was not covered at all by the Levelling Up bid. So I'm not surprised that we didn't get it, but other areas did, because there are other areas that probably needed it far more than us.
Would you go for HLF, Heritage Lottery?
There are several pots of money in which we are currently bidding for, yes. The financial situation is completely covered. There are several different trains in motion, and if one doesn't work, there'll be another one. If all of them work, we'll probably have a surplus. And we're working extremely closely with Bath Spa University, a hand in glove in particular with placing the actual storage area down at the Locksbrook campus. So it will be part of a new fashion department for Bath Spa. Yeah,
because that's costing you money, isn't it? Having it all stored in Warminster. I'm sure they're not doing it for free.
No, they're not doing it for free, no, but it has to be stored in a specialist location and a secure location, because it's a very expensive collection.
So you're still confident a new fashion museum will rise from the ashes?
100% confident, yes.
And how soon?
Well, the time frame at the moment is 3 to 4 years to completion, which is standard for a museum of that ambition and scale. But I'm very confident.
Okay, I'll keep.
Well, all my staff are very confident anyway, so unless they're lying to me.
We're talking on a day when Birmingham City Council announced that they're bankrupt. Obviously, the politicians, the Tories, are saying if Labour can't run a city council, they can't run the country. Others on the other side are saying there are loads of Tory administrations that are facing bankruptcy too. How are we doing under Lib Dem? Are we going bankrupt?
Absolutely not, no.
It's a tight budget.
It's a very tight budget. So the council is facing the same inflationary pressures that everybody else and wage pressures that everybody else is facing. Probably 20% plus more on our spend than we thought we were going to be doing. The main pressures, as per normal, are in children's services. We have a surplus of new children coming into the system, SEND, complex SEND concerns. We have unaccompanied asylum-seeking children that which has increased the spend on children's services significantly. Those pressures are very serious, and I can't underplay the ridiculous amounts of pressure public funding in local government is under.
Do you think you might do better under a Labour government?
Well, we can't do any worse than the current bunch we've got at the moment. I'll just leave it at that. I am confident that a Labour government would help, particularly around issues to do with children's services and adult care. You would hope a Labour government would help us more in those areas. And I will be speaking to the new minister that comes in straight away.
Kevin, have you set out your priorities? You're all back at work, the kids have gone back to school. What are the priorities?
You can't call the cabinet the kids.
Well, some would. I haven't. What would you say are the priorities of this Lib Dem administration?
Well, one I mentioned, to be one of the greenest councils in the United Kingdom. I think the climate emergency is something that is, we've discussed this many times, Richard, it is the most important issue facing all generations today. So if we weren't to put that at the heart of all of our decision making, you'd be stupid. There's also the economy. So you've got to make it a probably more balanced economy in Bath. We mentioned earlier about tourism and being the bedrock. We've got to look at moving away from that slightly. And that's where the encouraging the incubator businesses from the university to stay, that is a top priority, and making sure our two great universities and the people that come out of that stay local and work local. That is difficult. Third, the big challenge, which is really difficult to fix, is the housing situation in Bath and North East Somerset. It has got to a point now where normal families cannot afford to live here. So the private sector has failed the housing market of Bath, and it's not all their fault. We have had, post-COVID, we've had a surplus of individuals coming in from London, which has hiked the housing market up. It's a great place to live. We've got great schools, we've got great shops, got great museums, brilliant nightlife. So why wouldn't you want to live here? But unfortunately, that is costing people out of the market. That is something we need to step in to fix. We've got Aquis as our company, and we're going to look to try and fix that problem. But that's probably a 4 to 8 to 12 year solution. So many big things, and genuinely really passionate to try and fix them. And I'm so pleased and honoured that the people of Bath and North East Somerset have given us the chance and re-elected us with a large majority to try and achieve those big tasks.
Kevin, thank you.